it was really there I started to feel a pretty strong connection to the military. Like I was starting to thrive and really succeed. It, I'll mention this only not because I think it's so worthy of saying how I did, but it does reveal the irony later on that I was finishing as the top candidate in every military course I did. I
Fantastic.
went and did my officers military police course at Borden, was top candidate, and like things were going really well for me. I loved it, was making friends, and felt a pretty strong connection to the discipline, teamwork, and the home I felt in the military. So yeah, it was going well. In fact, after I completed my career training course, I was posted as the second female officer ever to be posted to a unit known as the Special Investigations Unit,
Wow,
which was
congratulations.
part of the military police. So
So,
I was pretty proud of all of that.
so as a young woman in the late 80s, how was the military, acceptance, especially it being the second female into this kind of unit?
Yeah, I certainly noticed some kind of things that weren't always so welcome. A little bit of harassment, the teasing stuff. I was totally cool with that because I saw that as a part of camaraderie.
Right.
But really from the first days, I sometimes had some unwanted attention, but that was unfortunate. But most of it was just really focused on being a good officer, learning as much as I could, and fitting into the military culture, which actually I enjoyed. Like I thought the discipline was amazing, and I really
Right.
felt a purpose in service. There was a lot going on. You're a young person.
Yeah.
You're, kind of participating in this extremely hierarchical organization, learning your role, trying to excel. Um, and so, a lot's happening. But for the most part, I really liked it and was intending to make it my career. In fact, I kind of thought about like 9 years, so I could do a lot more of this. Like, I like it.
Right, right. And so this very special unit that you ended up going to, what was its main focus and what did it do?
Well, the Special Investigations Unit, which was disbanded kind of shortly after, in I think the late 80s or early 90s, but it investigated the most serious forms of criminality
Oh, wow.
within the military. So, very serious crime, sabotage, subversion, espionage, and also allegations of homosexuality. Of course, keep
Okay.
in mind that even though the Charter of Rights and Freedoms was in place by 1982, and especially the Human Rights Protection Clause, known as Section 15, that came into effect in 1985. So before I joined, even.
Right.
But the military still had these policies which were pretty antiquated. And really, I think we soon found out that they were in violation of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So I wasn't in that unit for very long as well. Because what my career advancement people didn't know was that I myself was under investigation by that very unit
Really?
because I had started a relationship with a fellow officer, like fell in love for the first time with a fellow officer. She was amazing. Um, I don't think it's a newsflash to any single person watching this that there were a lot of LGBT
No.
or gay people in the military at that time. And but it got me in a lot of trouble. So soon it was my commanding officer. There were just the two officers in the unit in CFB Toronto where I was posted. And it was shortly after getting there that he told me to gather my things. We were flying to Ottawa for an investigation, but instead we went in the undercover K car. Some of you will remember those cars.
Yes, I used to have one
Yeah,
actually.
is that right? Yeah, I was dressed in civilian clothes. That's how we turned out to work every day.
Right.
And he drove me out towards the Toronto airport, but it pulled into one of the hotels on the airport strip. And I spent the next 2 days being interrogated by the military police, by two men about my sexual orientation,
Really?
who I might know was gay in the military, demanding that I name them, declaring to me that my loyalty to the gay community was greater than it was to my country, which
Wow.
has always been just such a deep offense to my heart. Like,
Yeah.
um, because you join up, you are there for your country. And I always felt like there was a primacy in that. And just happened that I turned out to be gay and really felt like so committed. But the military worked very hard to reject me. And after multiple interrogations, being flown to Ottawa, polygraphed, or while attached to the polygraph exam, I was a young woman, a young officer, breaking down under pressure of interrogations, multiple interrogations in
Wow.
hotel rooms. And, ultimately said, I put my hands up and said, yes, I'm gay. And that led pretty soon thereafter to me being fired under the military's policy. And on my release records, even though it's an honorable discharge, it says not advantageously employable due to homosexuality, which, if you
That's
think about it,
crazy.
that's why I even mentioned how I was doing in the military. I was a strong performer, dedicated, and really committed. So, um, just shows you that, I just got fired for being gay, for the most absurd reasons.
And
Um,
that's just unfathomable when you take the context in today's world. Like,
of
it's
course.
so backwards back in the 80s, especially after the Charter of Rights have, approved your all your rights. You are a regular person, and now the
I'm a
army is
pretty
saying,
regular
no,
person.
you can't be, you're out.
Yeah.
That's unfathomable.
It really is. And I think, I thought I was pretty much alone. I didn't really realize what the policies were at the time. They weren't advertising them.
Yeah.
Um, and to know now that between the 1950s and the 1990s, more than 9,000 people were investigated across the federal public service, RCMP, and military. And the losses are incalculable. The Canadian Armed Forces needs loyal, good people who are competent within the military sphere. I was all of that, and it didn't matter. Um, and it also took a pretty big toll on me as a human
Of
being,
course.
right? Like those interrogations were things that I carry today. I was left as a young, shamed person, fired by my first job. Um, and I was in pretty bad fog. And, it's only kind of in the last decade or so I've really been able to contend with what happened to me and
Yeah.
thousands of others as well.
Well, and that's just it. Like, I'm sure that there was a ton of people that were fired for the same reason, but that also has a spin-off effect of all the people who wouldn't join or was not accepted because of the same reasoning. Our force is weaker to this day because of it.
Yeah, I think it's just an amazing point. Like I worked really hard to not be found out by the military,
Right?
uh, and which even though I was kicked out, I had not been out to my family. Like I was still kind of discovering who I was and didn't feel like part of the LGBT community really. I just knew what I felt in my heart. And the military police told me that they gave me 24 hours to come out to my family or that they would do it for me because they deemed me a
Wow.
security risk, which was it's just absurd.
Oh yeah.
And but I did do that because it's what I did, right? Like you salute that order.
Yeah.
I got into my 1978 Ford Fairmont, which I bought for $500 and drove back and went to see my father, who was a senior federal government official at the time, and told him. And the mercy is that he was amazing, and just like said, like, I'll help you tell mom, and came for me, you know?
Right. Well,
Not
good.
everybody does that. My friends in the military closed ranks extremely tightly. I got, kicked out by them as well because they did not want to be rendered more vulnerable by their association with me.
Right.
It's just brutal. And this is now what we call the LGBT purge. I'm not alone in this.
No.
So the military destroyed a lot of lives. People committed suicide. And you take this deep shaming about who you are, essentially has nothing to do, by the way, with how we were doing our jobs and our
No.
loyalty to the country.